It happened in front of everyone. My sister sobbed into Mom's arms, pointing at me. She stole Dad's money. My father's voice thundered, "Get out! Jade!" loud enough for the neighbors to hear. No one looked at me, not even Mom. I was 16, barefoot on the porch, rain soaking through my shirt, my heart beating louder than his anger. I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I just walked into the dark, clutching the only thing left, my truth. Weeks later, when she bragged about it, someone else heard every word. And that changed everything. Stay with me, it gets louder from here. Till, back then, we looked like any other family in our quiet Ohio neighborhood. Neatly trimmed lawn, white porch, pumpkins on the steps every fall. From the outside, the Smiths were steady, polite, ordinary, inside. Though, there was always a scale I could never balance. Dad worked long hours at the auto shop and measured worth in obedience. Mom kept the house spotless and hated making a scene. Haley, my little sister, was the soft one. She knew how to cry just enough to melt everyone's heart. And me? I was the quiet achiever, the one who believed love could be earned by doing everything right. I remember Saturday mornings when I'd make pancakes for everyone while Dad read the paper. If Haley burned hers, he laughed and said, "She's still learning." If I missed a spot on the counter, he sighed like it ruined his day. When I brought home an art ribbon from school, Mom said, "That's nice, Jade, but you should focus on real subjects." But when Haley landed a background role in a Christmas play, she filmed it like a Hollywood premiere. Dad even printed flyers to hand out at church. I told myself that was just parenting, that every family had favorites. I smiled through it, cleaned up after Haley, and reminded myself we were sisters, not rivals. She'd borrow my sweaters, leave them stained, and I'd still fold her laundry. She'd forget her homework, and I'd help her finish it before bed. I thought kindness could fix anything. I thought being the good one mattered. That illusion cracked slowly. Little things, like the way Mom would hush me if I corrected Haley, or how Dad's face softened only when she spoke. One night, during dinner, Haley spilled grape juice across the table. It splashed onto my sketchbook. I froze. Dad snapped at me, "Don't overreact." Then he smiled at her. "It's okay. Honey, accidents happen." My hands shook as I dabbed the pages dry, pretending it didn't sting. That's when I realized something simple but brutal. My place in that house wasn't to be loved. It was to make loving her easier for everyone else. And still, I stayed quiet, because that's what peace looked like in our family, silence wrapped in smiles. The older we got, the clearer it became. Haley was the sun, and I was the shadow that made her shine brighter. Every compliment to her came with a quiet comparison aimed at me. When she got a C in math, Dad said, "She just needs time." When I brought home an A, he said, "Don't brag." At church, people would say, "Your girls are so different." Mom always laughed. "Yes, one's the angel, the other's artistic." I knew what she meant. Artistic was her polite word for difficult. I kept trying to win them over. I stayed after school to help teachers clean up the art room. I volunteered at the library. I even helped Mom decorate for Haley's birthday, balloons, cupcakes, glitter all over the floor. When the guests arrived, Mom pulled me aside and whispered, "Stay out of the pictures, honey. Let her have the spotlight." I nodded, pretending it didn't matter. But when the camera flash went off and I wasn't in the frame, something inside me cracked. At dinner that night, Dad poured Haley another glass of soda, ruffled her hair, and said, "She's such a sweetheart. Never gives us trouble." I laughed too, quietly, because the alternative was crying. Then came the whispers at school. Someone, probably Haley, told her friends I was jealous, that I always needed attention. People started watching me differently, waiting for me to prove her right. I worked harder to stay invisible. It almost worked, until the missing money. It was a Saturday. Dad had been saving for a new car part. Cash tucked in an envelope in his desk. I saw him count it once, nearly $200. That evening, Haley came into my room, eyes red. "Dad's furious," she said, voice trembling. "He can't find the money." I stood up, alarmed. Maybe he misplaced it. She hesitated, then looked at me the way a snake sizes its prey. You should talk to him before he finds out. Minutes later, Dad burst into my room, veins visible at his temple. Where is it? He barked. I blinked. What? He yanked open drawers, threw my clothes aside until his hand reached under my pillow. The envelope. My breath froze. Haley gasped behind him, perfect timing. I told her not to, Dad, she cried. I told her it wasn't worth it. Mom covered her mouth. Dad's face turned the color of fury. After everything we've done for you, he said, voice shaking. Dad, I didn't... Enough. The word hit harder than any slap. I remember the silence afterward, the kind that hums inside your skull. I remember Haley's tears hitting the floor. I remember the sound of my own heartbeat, wild and helpless. That was the moment I realized there was no space left for truth in that house. Lies had taken root too deep. Later that night, I heard them whispering downstairs, Dad's voice low, full of shame, Mom's higher, frantic, Haley's sobs between them like punctuation marks. I stayed on the stairs, gripping the railing, listening to my own family plan my exile. She needs to learn a lesson, Dad said. Maybe she'll change, Mom replied. She scares me, Haley whispered. I wanted to scream that I was still their daughter, but when I looked down the dark hallway, I understood something else instead, no matter what I said. They had already chosen the version of me they wanted to believe, and I wasn't in it. It happened 3 nights later. The October wind howled outside, rattling the windows, while I sat cross-legged on my bed, sketching under the soft desk lamp. The smell of pencil shavings, the sound of my playlist, everything felt still. Then the door slammed open. Dad stormed in, face flushed. Mom followed, clutching Haley, who looked small and trembling in her arms. She confessed, Mom said quietly, voice shaking. She saw you take it. My pencil rolled off the bed. For a second, my mind went blank. Take what? I whispered. Dad shoved the crumpled envelope in my face. The money. Don't play dumb. I didn't. He didn't let me finish. He yanked the blanket off my bed, flipped the pillow. And there it was. An envelope filled with cash I'd never seen before. My heart dropped so hard I couldn't even breathe. Haley covered her mouth, eyes wide and wet. I'm sorry, Jade, she sobbed. I didn't want to tell them, but I couldn't hide it anymore. I turned to her, stunned. You put it there, didn't you? Dad's hand slammed down on my desk so hard the lamp flickered. Watch your tone, he barked. You should be ashamed. Mom looked at me, her lips trembling. Why would you do this to us? To your sister? The world blurred. My voice came out cracked. I didn't steal anything. You have to believe me. But they didn't. The decision was already written across their faces. Dad grabbed a black trash bag, stuffed in whatever he thought were my things. Socks, a sweater, a pair of jeans, and thrust it against my chest. Get out! This house doesn't harbor thieves. I just stared at him, my fingers numb around the plastic. Dad, please! Go, he said, right now. Mom didn't speak. She only held Haley closer, whispering, It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. I'll never forget the way Haley looked at me then, how her tears suddenly stopped, how the corner of her mouth twitched upward for just a second, a smile small and cruel, and in that moment, I knew. The front door opened, cold air rushed in, cutting through my skin like glass. The porch light glowed behind them as Dad shoved me out. The trash bag hit the ground with a dull thud. My bare feet touched the icy concrete, and I bit back a gasp. The door slammed, the lock clicked. Silence. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at the wood grain of the door, the light bleeding through the gap at the bottom. I thought about knocking, about screaming until someone listened, but something in me broke clean instead. I knew even if I shouted until my voice vanished, no one would open that door again. So I turned away. The night was bitter, wind slicing through my thin pajamas. My breath came out in white clouds as I stepped off the porch and onto the street. The asphalt stung like fire under my feet, but I kept walking. Leaves scraped along the sidewalk. The moon hung low, and somewhere far off, a dog barked once and fell silent. By the time I reached the small park near school, my legs were shaking. I sat on a cold bench, hugging the trash bag to my chest. Inside it, I could feel the corner of my sketchbook pressing against my ribs, a tiny piece of who I used to be. For hours, I watched the streetlights blink, my body shivering uncontrollably. And when dawn finally bled into the horizon, one thought circled in my head, steady and cold. If they could throw me away so easily, then I would learn how to live without them. The first few nights blurred into each other, park benches, bus stops, the empty library staircase. I learned how to stay invisible. I'd sit in the farthest corner of the library until closing, pretending to read. When the staff turned off the lights, I'd sneak back in, curl up behind the old bookshelf, and wrap my jacket around my knees. The hum of the air vent became my lullaby. Sometimes I went to the gas station down the street, where the clerk had stopped asking questions. I'd rest my head on the plastic table near the window, the smell of gasoline and burnt coffee thick in the air. Every time the door chimed, I flinched, expecting my father's voice. It never came. Days passed like that, quiet, hungry, cold. And then one afternoon I saw her, Grandma Maggie, standing outside the library in her gray coat, holding a paper bag. "You look like you haven't eaten," she said softly. I froze, terrified she'd scold me, drag me home. But she just handed me the bag, sandwiches, an apple, a folded 20. "Stay where you are, Jade. Let me handle this." I didn't understand what she meant then, but I would. 2 weeks later, I found out she'd gone to a family dinner at her house. My parents were there, proud of their good daughter. Haley was laughing, showing pictures on her phone. The star of the night. And that's when she said it, the words that changed everything. "You won't believe what I pulled," she bragged, smirking at her cousin over FaceTime. I slipped the money under her pillow and cried a little. They totally bought it. She's gone now, problem solved. Grandma heard every word. She didn't interrupt. She didn't even blink. She quietly took her iPad, hit record, and let the truth hang itself. The next morning, she texted Mom, "Meet me at the church after service." Alone. I didn't know all of this until later, but that day, while I sat in the library sketching with numb fingers, Grandma was confronting them. She played the recording in the small prayer room behind the altar. Haley's voice echoed off the walls, every cruel word, every giggle. Mom broke down, sobbing. Dad turned white. Grandma didn't yell. She just said, "You threw away a child for a lie. Now you'll make it right." By that afternoon, they had no choice. Grandma made them post a public apology on Facebook, in the church group, even emailed my school principal. My name cleared within hours. The same people who whispered behind my back now wrote comments like, "Poor Jade," and "How could they?" Dad's phone buzzed nonstop. Mom couldn't leave the house. And Haley, she stayed in her room, curtains drawn. That night, Grandma came to find me again. When I saw her standing in the library doorway, I dropped my pencil and ran. She held me tight, whispering, "You don't need to defend yourself anymore. The truth spoke for you." Later, in her warm kitchen, over soup and soft lamplight, I finally let myself cry, not from pain, but from relief. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't invisible. Grandma kept me with her after that. Her red brick house smelled like cinnamon and coffee, and every morning she'd hum while frying eggs, pretending not to notice when I lingered in the doorway just to be sure she was real. She didn't ask me to forgive anyone. She only said, "Let the truth do what it's meant to do, heal you, not chain you." At school, teachers who once avoided me now met my eyes. My English teacher slipped a note onto my desk. "I'm sorry. I should have asked, not assumed." I didn't need more than that. Haley avoided me completely, walking the opposite direction in the hall. At church, people whispered, but this time the weight wasn't on my shoulders, it was on theirs. One weekend, Grandma brought me a pair of new running shoes, navy blue with white laces. "You need to feel the ground again," she said. I started running in the mornings, through quiet streets, past houses still asleep. The air was sharp, clean. Each step felt like reclaiming something they'd taken. A month later, Dad tried to call. I stared at his name glowing on the screen. The same name that once ordered me out into the cold. I didn't answer. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Now I sit on Grandma's porch, sketchbook open on my knees, the sun sinking over the maple trees. The same October wind blows, but it doesn't bite anymore. I draw the scene. Light spilling across the yard. Leaves swirling like tiny sparks of gold, and I smile. They once thought throwing me out would erase me. Instead, it set me free. Have you ever had to lose everything just to find peace? If this story hit home, share your thoughts below and subscribe for more true family betrayal and quiet revenge stories.